Um, Welcome to the first panel discussion after your lunch break. I hope you had a great lunch break. This panel will be about the new normal for international cultural projects. My name is Ken Veerman, and I'm happy to introduce you to three very different but equally interesting speakers. We have with us today Aleksandra Zakharchenko. She's the head of programs and training for the Marché du Film and the Festival de Cannes, so the French Film Festival. We've got Olesia Ostrovska-Liuta, who is the Director General of Mystetskyi Arsenal, which you all know in Kiev. And we have Thomas Heher here, who's the Program Director for Waves Vienna, a music showcase festival. So we have a film festival and a network event. We've got a museum, we've got a music showcase festival. So they're three very different cultural initiatives. But what they share is that they're all internationally focused and that they all had to have a solution. They had to come up with a solution for this world that came to a standstill in the pandemic. So I would like to start with a round and just ask everybody how they did that, what happened to them. And I'd like to start with Aleksandra. Aleksandra, Cannes had to go online because of COVID-19. So how did that go?
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to this panel. And I will be very glad to share our experience, which was as hard as my colleagues' ones, I'm sure. So starting from Cannes, that we didn't manage to organize the Cannes Film Festival, but we managed the Cannes Film Market, which is a mainly networking event. And as you might know, that Cannes Film Festival and the market is accessible only for film professionals. And basically, self-organizing the film screenings, it's not that complicated, but the most complicated part was to organize networking events. And we basically had in 2 months, that was our deadline to build up the new platform, try to understand how we can switch from the on-site events to the online version. And now we are planning on 2021, which we are planning to make hybrid, which is even more challenging, much more complicating because we had to move our dates from May to July. And so far, we don't know 100% what kind of restrictions will be on the governmental level, what kind of restrictions on the travels will be. So basically, we're in constant negotiation and exchange with the partners that we are working with and also the participants. And obviously, nothing is 100% sure. And organizing the hybrid event, it's much more challenging than organizing something online. So basically, we have the Cannes Film Festival and its aura that it's built around the exchange and doing the business and the film industry. And the most complicated thing for us was to, and still actually even in the hybrid and online version, it's how do we bring in this sensation of having the spontaneous meetings between the professionals, because as I guess it's the same on the other cultural fields, it's very based on the people's relationships and also what is the feeling for, like, what is the connection between the future collaborators, future co-producers. It's really important to have this individual physical connection. So how do you really recreating the serendipity of the connections, which is still challenging nowadays, because there are some apps and actually platforms that enable you to do it, that give you opportunity to have this kind of glitch of having this connection, but still it works for 5 minutes, but still people need to see each other physically. And we have what is most important for us also is to constantly.
And I think we've lost Aleksandra somewhere between Kiev and Cannes. Okay, we'll get back to Aleksandra in a second. Olesia.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it was my it was my internet.
Aleksandra's back. Okay. Okay.
Sorry.
We'll get back to the interesting story about hybrid events in a second. I think that's one of the things we need to talk about. But I first would like to go to Olesia and ask you how you have dealt with the COVID-19 crisis as one of the biggest museums in Kiev. How did that? What did you do? What did you learn?
Well, thank you for asking. And while Aleksandra was speaking, it reminded our own experience so much, especially because Mystetskyi Arsenal is not only a museum, we are a multidisciplinary institution. And we also organize probably the biggest in our part of the world literary and book festival, the Book Arsenal, which takes place in the end of May. And last year, we had to divide it into two parts, which we never realized as two different parts. One is a part connected with readers and more general audience, those who come to enjoy books and literature and all the non-professional serendipity. And the other wing were professionals. And we found out, well, for professionals, we did create a professional program with meetings, lectures, interchange, and even rights purchase. And that worked, in our opinion, compared to what happens when you work with a moral audience. And now I will jump to our museum component. What we clearly understood are two major takes. One is that museums and institutions of cultures are basically places of presence, of physical presence. We need to be present physically to actually to be able to proceed with the mission, actually to do what cultural institutions and their visitors, audiences do. And second is the digital formats or digital programming, nevertheless, is becoming as much important as physical presence, but it has a totally different function. What's the challenge? The challenge is that those two wings of our programming activities need two different infrastructures, and both are costly. So that means that we have to double infrastructure. We have to have a physical building, a landmark national site building, which is already a very costly thing to have. And then you have to have this same landmark online architecture, which does not exist yet. And even as we see with today's platform, which is great, but still there are different surprises when we interact with online infrastructures. That was also a very important thing with museums and cultural institutions is that people need to be present physically there. People come there not only to enjoy our program, not to interact with us as institution, but to be together, to interact with each other, which is not possible when you are in front of the screen. It's a totally different, absolutely different interaction. Yeah. Also, when you are physically present, your senses work in a very different way than this form of interaction through screen, where you have conferences, working meetings, all sorts of calls, and they give you the same physical sensation. You're looking into a flat screen with a little bit different picture. So basically, as a viewer, as an audience, as a creator, you became extremely tired and worn out of this same activity. Well, different when you interact, and we think there is no way to substitute physical by virtual. Well, virtual is important as well. And to finish this, one of the most complicated issues through the year in our work was this necessity to keep a few scenarios open at the same time. you're working with you have like 2 or 3 scenarios, and you have to invest the same effort and energy in all of them, but you have the same team. And and this is hard from the point of view of energy of the effort you have to put into it, but it's also very complicated psychologically.
Yeah.
There is no point of stability. However, I'm finishing. What we learned also, it's much easier for Ukrainians who are over 40s, in their age over 40, than for younger people. And my interpretation is that those who are over 40, they lived through the 90s and collapse of Soviet Union and change of everything, and they're just more adept to this instability.
Okay, that's interesting. Next up, I'd like to go to Thomas. Thomas, you have or you run a showcase festival for live music. So the essence of that is going to see bands live in a small, sweaty room. You couldn't do that anymore. So what did you do?
Basically 2020 was our 10th anniversary of the festival, and we were about to launch a film festival part of our music festival as well, which we had to cancel right at the beginning when we were like already booking movies and inviting over directors and stuff like that. After that, like Waves Vienna is happening at the beginning of September. So we had quite a lot of time in comparison to others to adapt to the new situation. And we were planning several different versions of our festival as well, like everyone did, I think. And in the summertime, like the infection rates were really dropping down in Austria. But of course, like there were lots of travel restrictions going on, which had very big implications for the musical program, as we do have around 120 acts playing at Waves from over 40 different countries, and having about 1,000 delegates at our music conference, again from over 40 countries. So these travel restrictions and the situations, the different situations in every country, had a very high impact on everything with what we were doing. In addition, we do have lots of collaborations with export offices, cultural institutions, and embassies as well. And they were used to do networking things and receptions and all stuff of that. So we really scaled down and transformed the entire festival to something we called hybrid. But the hybrid aspect of the festival was basically that we were pre-recording all the shows of the musicians, like they were at home pre-recording some shows, and it was premiered at our festival. We had different channels which represented the stages we usually have, which were broadcasting at the same time, and people could switch from one channel to another. And the hybrid aspect was that at our festival center, which is a venue with a very big courtyard, we installed 14 screens around the courtyard and had some seating over there with tables and stuff like that. And at the weekend of the festival, that was the last weekend where people were allowed to attend events that are not seated. They only had to keep like a physical distance of 2 meters, which we could provide because the courtyard was rather big. And we had a capacity of 300 people there. Usually we do have around 15,000 people at the festival. So, The conference part was entirely streamed online. Like there was no pre-recording thing. We had lots of networking things as well, and breakout sessions and stuff like that. And to be honest, like the conference was really, really good. We had lots of attendance, more than 1,000, which we usually have at the conference. So people were popping in from all over the world, watching like the panels and stuff, and which has brought us to the conclusion that this format is really, really good, and we would keep it for the future editions of Waves Vienna, which we are now doing because we are already in the middle of planning this year's edition. With the music parts, the most important learning was that people in Austria are not willing to pay for online streaming things. We had a pay-as-you-wish thing going on where people could donate some money, which went directly to a support fund for Austrian musicians. And we had an app and a plugin programmed where people could buy from one shop from all artists stuff to support the artists themselves. Yeah, well, with this donate thing, it was like 140 euros from all the people who were watching that came in. So people are really are like in the opinion that everything on the internet has to be free. I think that's like staying for the streaming thing as well. So that was basically last year's edition. And with the learnings from the conference, we're planning to do, like right now, we do have some funding from the Austrian Ministry of Economics, which has a guarantee that if in September there are restrictions that prevent us from doing the festival as a live event, or that reduces the capacity of the festival, and we are losing money of that. Because of that, we're getting funding for all the money we are losing in that way. So we are passing on this guarantee to all our sponsors and partners that if the festival is downsized by any restrictions by law, they are getting their money back as well. And in course of that, right now we're planning a full edition, a live edition of the festival. Of course, we have a backup plan if there are restrictions and we have to go with some stuff of it or all of it online again. But right now we are hoping that the vaccination in the summertime is so high that we can do at least most of the festival live again. But again, like Olesia already said, like the networking part of the internationals coming in and networking with the Austrians and amongst each other is a very important part of the festival. It's a showcase festival. Music like is standing in front of an act, playing there, talking about how to maybe get this act on the label or on the agency is very important, and that's very much likely that that's not happening as it was like the 10 years before. And of course, like we are not going to launch a film festival in course of COVID-19 times. So this plan is postponed, as well as all the festivities for our 10th anniversary, which it looks like it's going to happen for the 13th edition of Waves then.
Okay, thank you. It's my job to try and summarize what you guys have said and then find some kind of like uniform thing that we can talk about. And I've noticed that there's an interesting paradox in what you're saying. That is, on the one hand, as Olesia said, the places of physical presence are very, very crucial to what you do for audiences and for professionals. But on the other hand, you notice that the professional interaction and professional networking has thrived on this online conference platform and the new ways of talking to each other. So am I right in saying that we've discovered a couple of new opportunities for the professional networking, but the challenges are mostly on the audience side? Is that the right way of looking at it? Who wants to chime in?
Yeah, I mean, when we were doing the festival and we had quite a good attendance on the online networking things, no one had any other chance. So there was only this one option. My guess is, like, if I had the option to attend a festival in person and to network there in person, I would prefer it to online. But of course, like, it's much easier to go to the next room and attend an online panel than traveling to Kiev. That takes much more time and so and much more money as well. So it's much more cost intensive. But of course, the quality of an interaction in person is always much higher, because you have so much more things to communicate. Like Olesia said, it's not only sitting in front of a flat screen. So I always prefer the communication in person and the networking as well.
Okay. Olesia, you were going to say something as well.
Yes, thank you. I very much agree with Thomas and actually with Aleksandra as well, because she mentioned all those things as well. But I think in our experience, professional works much better than more general audience. Also because when people have a practical reason to be online, they get focused and they get their things done. When you do not have a practical reason, that becomes a huge challenge. And one thing, and also there is this part of the practical professional work, which is scouting, and scouting depends on serendipity and meeting people. So scouting is very complicated online, but if you are prepared, you know what you need, you have to buy rights for a book or films or something, then it's very practical and works very well. But we also have a very new experience when we chose that interacting with audiences can be also quite efficient and good online. And that is connected to situations when there are serious restrictions for people to get to the space physically. Right now, we have an exhibition on, which we haven't opened yet because of lockdown, and it's an exhibition of Belarusian contemporary art, and it's very much concentrated on the historical momentum. As you know, there are protests against Lukashenko regime and in Belarus. And you cannot have this type of exhibition in Belarus at all. Especially, well, contemporary art is already a very, revolutionary activity in Belarus. Just contemporary art as a practice. So we did this exhibition in Kiev, but what we also did, we did 3D tour, which was very much old-fashioned media just a year ago. But with the lockdowns, suddenly the old-fashioned media like radio and 3D tours became much more and more important. So we did a 3D tour with audio guide, with explanations, with embedded discussions and embedded artistic videos. And we do online events for general audience with curators explaining the exhibition, with authors explaining their artworks. And we found out that this format is very much needed by, for example, Belarusian audience. For people who cannot see anything like that in their country, online formats are important not just in professional sense, but also in sense of building solidarity, supporting each other, and even learning something new. So the conclusion would be that when you have situations with very strong restrictions from political to health restrictions, then online would work probably for general audience as well.
Okay.
I just wanted maybe to add something on that for professional and for the larger audience. It's very important the timing as well, and it's exactly right, Olesia, that you told that people. It's not the same engagement when you have something to look for, when you're engaged like professionally. You really need those meetings, and we actually we asked the participants to put. Even to put an absence message that if they were on the site, and it's actually changes a lot the involvement, because you can't have the routine and that you have in work and participate at the same time. It's not the same involvement. And also there is a question about weekends and holidays that is very human one. But for instance, here in France, people are very strict about the holidays in July. So there is a real conversation about, like, is it a good plan to do Cannes Film Festival online part for this in July, where everything is supposed to be closed, and it's the same, I think, for Scandinavian countries. So this is something that has to be also taken into account, the timing for the online part and the physical part.
Yeah, interesting. Because I was struck by we started talking about the difference between the physical structures that you all have to maintain and build, and then the online structures that we have to build and maintain, and how they kind of complement each other in certain ways. But those roles are changing. That is very clear, that the way we use technology has changed dramatically in the last year. I mean, I don't know how many Skype or Zoom calls you did before the pandemic, but this has changed completely. So I think, do you see any changes in behavior, both from audiences and professionals? Do you expect this to last? Aleksandra?
Since we're preparing the physical event, it's very interesting to see how how our partners react on the new situation. And actually, basically, it's a 0 point when you kind of go in one by one through the activities that you've been organizing since 15 years or 20 years that have been existing and never been questioned. And now it's a real challenge and opportunity to question ourselves, like whether that was really a good way to do the events. And it's the same like for the network. Before it was the more the merrier, and people were super happy to be surrounded by 500 people, but the quality of the connections wasn't the same. So now our partners and us as well, like while planning on networking events, we are really questioning ourselves, is less is more, actually. That's what the conclusion is, basically. And the same goes for any networking event, in any way that we were seeing this and never questioned ourselves on every event that we've been planned, without questioning ourselves. And so I think that the most important is also to ask the audience and the professional, does it really work for you specifically? Does it really apply, is it something that you are really looking for in the event? So Zoom meetings, I think they're still working, but even when we build up our platform, we put all the setup that people could connect themselves spontaneously also with themselves. And they still did use the Zoom. And the most important thing wasn't actually the platform and the mean that we put together, but also the momentum that we've created. And that was the most important for professionals, to have the specific time where they can be really focused on the event, and whatever mean they use, Zoom or whatever other platform that we're providing them. And I think that if it's a real project-based scouting, for instance, it's still possible to do it online, and maybe safety and actually more inclusive, because if you want to, like in our case, as an international market, we have projects from Asia and Latin America and Africa. So far, it's actually the scouting becomes much more inclusive, because you have this wide range of the opportunities to connect with the new people and new projects that you've never been connected with before. And that most likely works, but then there is this serendipity again that I like using, and I love this word. But the spontaneous meeting really, in my opinion, don't work via Zoom, and it's really hard to make people connected without any additional reason to use their time.
Thomas, is that your experience with your hybrid festival, that you're bringing technology and the physical together, and that is the relationship has changed? Is that the need for, let's dive into the serendipity, because it's popped up a couple of times. Do you feel that need?
Yeah. There are in the last year we tried to really translate all the formats we had in a physical edition of Waves to a digital one. Like we had the panels where we had like a physical audience as well, which was very limited because of this like physical distancing between the chairs. So like we had 2 main rooms where we did the panels, and it was a capacity of only 50 people, and we had screens on there for the people who were who joined the panel from the internet, and we had people sitting there. And then we had additional screens when people were like asking a question from the audience. They were put on these screens, so the people who were sitting in the room could see them. And we also had them online in the streaming there. So basically it was like 4 different levels of communications we had to connect each other, that everyone could see at any time the people who were talking. Like when was someone standing up in the room and asking a question, we had an extra camera team who were filming that guy and putting this guy on screen. So this was like, that was quite an expensive thing, and we had a collaboration running on. That's why we could provide all this. And we're trying to do this year again, because I think like people really embraced these activities for the real networking thing. Like we always have these receptions. What Aleksandra said, the more the merrier. Like with 200 to 300 people standing there drinking, eating, and for us it was always a very good addition to the one-to-one networking and mentoring sessions we are offering, because it's always like easy to get to talk to someone who is standing at the bar with a drink in his hand and listening to music, something, or maybe is open to talk. It's not that easy to go to someone after on a panel or something, and maybe that's some music specific thing, but I think like it's in all culture disciplines very much the same. And what we got a feedback from our one-to-one breakout sessions, we call it speed meetings, and it's always like, for example, meet the Germans. Then you have like 10 people from German festivals sitting there, and you can apply, and the German Music Export Office selects like the people that are most interesting ones to meet their festival representatives. And the feedback I got was that they were less focused, because when you're sitting on screen, no one sees that you're like checking your emails and stuff. I mean, these situations, especially if you're working for a very big festivals, and then maybe a small agent from Austria shows up with bands that like have no following at all. It's easier to get these people's attention if you're sitting like one-to-one, and maybe after that you can go up and see like, this guy's standing at the bar, and give them a flyer, because like my band is playing at night at this venue, come by, buy your drink or something. That's everything of this is totally faded out, and that's the experience that people like on this level of music industry, they are working, they are skipping more and more of these conference formats, and they're just like waiting for the real stuff happening again. If you have, like, as I said before, myself, I prefer to meet in person as well, and I think there is no way around to have these events like almost the way they were before. Maybe to provide these online things for people who are not able or who are not willing to come to the festivals. So these things are complementary, as you said before. I don't think it transforms the event and the meaning of the event and the ways to communicate and the ways to network at all. I think it's only an addition, and only because it's necessary.
Yeah. Okay. Olesia, do you agree?
Yes, actually, very much. I think it's. I wouldn't say it in terms of addition, but I rather see it as expansion of our program. We have our program now have become wider. But I also wanted to mention something else. Speaking about visual arts and museums, such as Mystetskyi Arsenal, one of the challenges also is exhibition planning in these times. And that is not, this is purely physical thing. What happens with the physical things? You have to anticipate that there will be lockdown sometime during your exhibition. And your exhibition will be closed down for maybe a month, maybe more. And we have a few different experiences. One is when we did an exhibition, made an exhibition which was almost twice as long as usually. And that was a very good idea and good strategy, because when lockdown came, actually, no one was so sorry, because there was enough time to see the exhibition anyway. Another experience is creating an exhibition and having lockdown announced like 3 days before the opening. And then you have to, well, there is a different strategy then. What we learned is that every exhibition has to have longer terms. Now you have to count in at least 1 month into each exhibition for possible lockdowns. It's not so optimistic in Ukraine with the vaccination as it is in other European countries. So it doesn't look like Ukrainians will be vaccinated in large numbers by the end of the year. So we'll still have to live with that scenario.
Okay. That is interesting. That you kind of it sounds to me like you're slowing down your the rate of exhibitions. It's not about having as many exhibitions as possible, but just slowing it down so people can find the time to actually go and see that. It's a new plan that adapts to the new reality of a life that is quieter and slower than it used to be, I think.
No, I wouldn't agree with that. I'm sorry. I don't think life is slower. I think it's much faster because of this online life, which we didn't have before. So we have all the energy diverted from physical presence goes into online activity, one thing. And secondly, the fact that you do not have clear perspective. For example, our government is not very, they do not really plan in advance and inform you in advance. So you have to be extremely flexible, and a lot of energy goes into keeping flexible.
Yeah,
it's fast again.
So I would like to jump into the flexibility and something that was mentioned earlier, that it's your multi-scenario planning that you've all been doing. You have your plan A, you have your plan B, and then you have a plan C for when the two others don't work. And then there's a new variant of the pandemic and you have to change everything again. How has that impacted your operational side of the business? How has that impacted the way you plan for the future and the way you work as a team? Aleksandra.
I think it influenced a lot on the, as Olesia actually already told, it influences the mental health of the team, the investment, the time, the energy. And actually, Marché is also a co-organizer of another event in Argentina that is happening in December. And so we faced it. We really were hoping to make it happen at least in December. And it was like the right, like I think it was even like 1 week before the event, we were all hoping to have this physical event. And also, again, it's not the same to have something online in December and to have something physically there in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, where there is a summer, and it's not the same connection. And actually, the level of investment of our energy didn't really meet the return that we had on the online version. People were really super tired by December, and we were flexible. Okay, we managed to do something online, but then people were not ready to be flexible either. So on our side, there was the flexibility, and we do have to be flexible all the time because we're culture managers. And I think if we're not flexible and we're not adapting ourselves all the time, we want to do this work. I think that's we always will have some challenges, and this COVID situation is one of the challenges that we maybe have never been facing before, but we're always facing the financial difficulties, and even Cannes Festival, which is a big organization, but we have our financial model, and we're also dependent on this on the financement. On the investment, and yeah, so again, I think the team has to be flexible, that's for sure. But then the audience, at what extent they can be flexible. And then there was an interesting thing that maybe not straight away directed to your question, but something that I've seen on while organizing the panels, because I'm also creating this content. That online people were much more eager to learn something new and really like invest time and having something in return that would be a new knowledge rather than like on-site event. There was mostly about networking or like chasing the big names. Someone from HBO didn't work that good as someone from like just a simple producer with experience talking about co-production, like something really practical. And the behavior of how people are consuming the proposals that the events that we're organizing, it's not the same. I think. Yeah, again, this question about the flexibility that expands on all the levels. I think mentally, financially, and also the audience that you're organizing the events for.
Yeah, Thomas.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with Aleksandra at this point. Like at the beginning of the pandemic in springtime, it was just like so. Everyone was kind of motivated to try to find out some alternatives. Everyone was like, yeah, I'm going to improvise, and we are doing this and this and this. And after a couple of months, it sucked all the energy and motivation of everyone, and like it was really depressing. And when we came up like with this idea in end of July to do like this hybrid version of Waves, it was really kind of depressing working on this, because like we had to cancel everything, and just it was only a negative thing on all levels of everything. And at the event itself, like we had some international people invited to come over. It was like in a total of 50 people from abroad Austria. As I said before, like this was the time when we had the chance to have some people in the conference rooms and people in the courtyard of our festival center as well, watching the streams. And like we were sitting together with all the international guests, and they were saying, "Yeah, it's so great here, and we are not allowed to do this in Germany and in France and stuff. Like in the UK, we have a full lockdown, and here you can sit and have your drink in front like of watching this." And just like 2 days after the festival ended, we went into a full lockdown, and our event was like for like I'm still in contact, of course, with all these international people, and people were like mailing me like, you know, your festival was the last live event I went 1.5 years ago or something like that. And at this time, I told you it's so sad to see that nothing is happening live, and now I'm longing for something like this, because I like the maximum people I'm allowed to meet is 2, and still it's really depressing to work now on even if we hope that some sort of a full edition is going to happen. And of course we are planning again these alternatives and these fallbacks if the restrictions come. But I totally can understand if people are dropping out the music business and start something else, as like lots of smaller companies in Austria were also already discontinued because people were then, like, we are 2 people in the agency and there's nothing happening, and it's not about like the money, it's mostly about because they are not motivated anymore to work in this business. And this is a very, very dangerous thing. And I'm in the jury of some funding organizations as well, and we are really struggling with that because like there is a very, very brain drain from the creative sector because people feel that they are not important working in this sector because it's always like there's some entertainment going on. It's not like this is a real work, and they were treated very, very bad by the Ministry of Culture at the beginning of the pandemic, and like the head of the ministry had to step down because of this in June last year. It's a little bit better now, but still people feel not treated well, and that's a very, very dangerous thing. And I think that's even more dangerous in Ukraine. If you, Olesia, if you say that you're not thinking that like the majority of people is going to be vaccinated by end of the year, so then you are going into the 3rd year of lockdown, and people who are working in the cultural sector, like, I mean, that's sitting there losing 3 years of your work and of your networks, what you build up and everything. That's really, really dangerous and sad as well.
And how do you work with that? Because it seems to me that if somebody would have said, look, this is going to take 3 years, and so you have to close down everything and we'll open by, and it's guaranteed that we open by this, then it will be different from having this uncertain future. It could be over in a year, it could be over in 6 months, it could be 2 years, who knows? The uncertainty of working in a field that has no guarantee of ever returning to a situation that we already know. How do you work with that?
Well, like in Austria, it's a situation like the funding situation is, in comparison to other countries, quite good, like for the cultural sector. Now, at the beginning, it was really chaos and catastrophe. But now it's like people get money to survive, but still they are struggling to find a way to like let work when them with their creative energy. Because I said before, like people attending streaming concerts, streaming live shows, they are not paying for it, and it's always like if you're doing something for with no entry fee at all, it's always something. Yeah, people are not really taking you serious. It's more like an entertainment thing again. And cultural work is very important. It's always been very important for society, and I think we have to do more to connect like the creative sectors amongst themselves with all the different disciplines, and that's some of the funding projects now are trying to get hold of that, like to get an interconnection, because like right now there is a music sector and they are set for themselves, and they are sitting there in this corner of the room, and then there are the people from the film industry in that corner of the room and set for themselves. And of course, maybe like the situation for all people of the like the promoters, agents, labels, and musicians is all the same. And if they see that maybe there are different ways to treat that, or different ways to approach the crisis and the opportunities and the alternatives from other sectors, maybe that could give you some inspiration or hope for yourself and for the thing or the project you're working on.
Okay, let's put that to the two sectors that we haven't heard yet. So museums and film festivals. Is that do you recognize these stories about not feeling respected, perhaps by government, and not feeling like you have a perspective of working again and feeling your energy drained?
May I start? Well, as I said at the very beginning, what I noticed myself is that those people who are older than 40 years, they do better in this situation. because they're resilient, and they're resilient because they have lived through this type of uncertainty, well, different type, but this scale of uncertainty, and this feeling of disrespect is a part of the job. Somehow people were already embraced it, so they know that even the worst crisis will end, probably, hopefully. But as you see, I'm using disclaimers, probably and hopefully. Right? But if you look at Ukrainian situation, it's even more complicated with getting through on the national agenda for any cultural issues. Well, look at our situation. For the past month, the most important news in Ukraine was Russian troops on the border and whether they are going to military invade or not, and what happens if they invade. Imagine you have to flag that culture is in trouble. Not easy to talk to anyone with that. So this is just what helps in this situation. Remembering that we have to carry on with our activities and our jobs in any case, even in the worst situation, without knowing the result, without controlling results, because the situation is not in our control. You have to be, but Ukrainians are flexible by their historical experience. You are flexible in solutions and decisions, but you have to be very strict in organization. What our experience with book arsenal says. This year we are going to organize it as we moved it from May to end of June as well, and we have to organize it as a very controlled event, which might add to the difference in aura of this event. But as you know, festival events are always depending on their aura, what happens when people get together. And a book arsenal is quite huge. It's in 2019 we had about 56, I think, 1,000 visitors, and that's quite a crowded event. And this year we are approaching it less as a rock concert, which we'd love it to be, but more as an airport. We have to think in terms of queues, navigation, control of the number of people and things like that, but that's the price for being together. We also thought in terms of hybrid, and still do a hybrid festival, but we initially, when we were planning for it in last October, we thought that if we are restricted from doing a physical festival, we will go more online and less offline. But in this past month, we also realized that there is such a need for all offline activity, then it's better to move the whole ship, the whole festival. It's a huge thing than to go more online. And the other part of the price is that it will be less spontaneous and more controlled. But that's what you pay for being able together this year.
Okay. We're almost, Aleksandra.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that actually it's exactly what I think, what Thomas said and what Olesia said, that this illusion that we have on controlling everything, it's just an illusion, and it's always been. So we all the time have to be flexible again, and it's the illusion of stability. And I'm not over 40, but I also, as a Ukrainian, I know what the crisis means, and I think it's a really cultural thing. And being a foreigner in a French office, it's different. I think I actually managing the best for our team, like the crisis situation, but it's always about the illusion of the control. It doesn't exist. We have to be exactly as I said. We have to be prepared. We can count, but we always have to be ready to adapt, because the stability and illusion and stability is illusion, and the control is illusion, and the preparation it's something that you could maybe make it less stressful for you on the personal level, but it's still, again, there is no guarantee. Again, the same like as living in Ukraine and knowing that something could be politically changed, that the word expands like not something controlled again. Anything can happen in any country, and we never thought, I think, like 10 years before that Ukraine will be in war. I mean, I never thought about that. And here we are facing the worst situation, facing the new mental health issues, facing the COVID, and it's just no matter what the cultural aspect. I mean, there is no to answer about the respect question. I think the culture is always underestimated in any country. And depending how do we measure this respect, is it a financial measurement? It's one thing, but then I think it's just obvious for everyone that it's super important. But then on the governmental level, I think that the funding that we can measure it with. But I think in Ukraine, it's never been the same, very respected, but in France either. And people are still complaining that there is no respect towards the cultural management, cinema, and obviously music as well, and exhibition in all the cultural spheres. So that's just one thing that I wanted to add.
Interesting. I think the next panel that will be up in a couple of minutes is about leadership that is needed in resilient organizations, and I think that being able to deal with a crisis mindset and being able to deal with uncertainty, that this is going to be key in any kind of cultural organization in the future. So it's interesting to see what they will say about that. We've got 4 minutes left, and I would like to first off thank you all for this interesting panel. I feel we've touched on a lot of different topics. We went from hybrid organizations, the difference between physical and online presences and what that means. We've talked about mental health, we've talked about motivation, we've talked about crisis management. So all of that was, for me at least, I thought it was very brilliant. Before we go, I would like to ask each of you to answer one question that you haven't prepared before, which is the following. If you could travel back in time to, say, December 2019, when you first read about this weird virus in China, and you could travel back to yourself and you could give yourself one bit of advice, and that would be like, watch out because something's coming, make sure to do this or that. What would that be? Thomas.
I would buy as many shares of BioNTech Pfizer as I could afford.
Now that's cheating. It's about leadership. What would you tell yourself besides, get rich? What would you tell yourself that you've learned in this year, or more than a year, that could be useful? Aleksandra.
I think for me, I wouldn't change anything. And I think that if I said something, I would just stop hoping. And I think that's what would actually maintain me to be optimistic and like keep on going this with the organization. There was a hope and belief, which was almost a religious thing. And I think I wouldn't say anything to myself, because otherwise I wouldn't hope to make it happen. I wouldn't have this energy, and I would be depressed much earlier than I was actually. So yeah. I think I wouldn't talk to myself in best.
Thomas?
Yeah, I think it would have been really a problem to know how long that crisis will take if you would know it from the beginning on.
Yeah. And Olesia, any wise words to yourself?
Well, I would tell myself this is going to be a marathon. and it will be a long process. So be slow. Do not try to reach all your goals within a month.
Okay. That's very good advice. I think that's what we all have learned. We've worked way too hard, I think, in the last year to get where we are right now. Okay. This was an absolute pleasure to have you in this panel. We've got 1 minute left, so I think that's about time to call it quits. The one thing we always miss in these platforms is the possibility to give a round of applause. I don't know how you do it. Maybe just say applause in the chat box if you're listening, or thank you or whatever. But can I get an applause for Aleksandra, Olesia, and Thomas, because you were fantastic. Thank you.